Okay, good morning everyone, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday morning as we are studying together Perashat Ki Tetze. And we move right along, my friends, into chapter 23. Today's class has two sponsorships. Both of them are anonymous, and both of them are for the Refuah Shlema of all of Am Israel. Amen. Rabotai, Perashat Ki Tetze, chapter 23. Interesting chapter, telling us of all the people that are forbidden to convert, that were forbidden to marry. So as an example, lo yikach ish et eshet aviv. Okay, a person cannot marry his father's wife, even if it's not his actual biological mother. Okay, lo yavo petsua daka. Okay, somebody that is unfortunately not able to have children, someone who's sterile as well. You cannot marry. Again, all of these are complicated, and please speak to your local Orthodox rabbi today. Lo yavo mamzer. Okay, somebody who is a mamzer, someone who was born from a forbidden marriage, a product of a forbidden relationship. Okay, gam dor asiri, even 10 generations. Okay, cannot marry a Yisraelite. So what does a mamzer do? Mamzer has to marry a convert. Okay, there are, whatever, there's ways around it as well. Next, number 4, Lo yavo Amoni ve'Moavi b'kal Hashem. Believe it or not, the Torah says, the famous pasuk that we all know, especially when it comes to Shavuot, this is Shavuot Torah, Lo yavo Amoni ve'Moavi. And Amoni, from the nation of Ammon, and Moavi, the nation of Moav, are forbidden to convert. They can never come, even 10 generations, never allowed into the Jewish people. Now again, in Shavuot time, all of the speeches revolve around this pasuk. So then how did Ruth, the mother of Mashiach, the great-grandma of David HaMelech, she converted? How is that allowed? So it all comes down to this pasuk. At the time it was very controversial. There were people that said it wasn't okay. Of course we know today it is okay. And the reason is because it says it in male form, Ammoni, Moavi, only males are forbidden, females are not forbidden. Why can't Ammon and Moav convert? Interesting question. Next pasuk, Al devar asher lo kidmu etchem balechem ubamayim. You know why they can't convert? If I were to ask you, why can't these two nations convert? What did they do to us? Did they kill our babies? Did they destroy our homes? What did they do? No. The pasuk says, you know what they did? When you were out in the desert and you were going from Egypt to Israel, and on the way you passed by Ammon and Moav nations, territory, country, they didn't come out to give you bread and water. And they should have. It's not nice that they didn't do such things. Whoa. Okay, that's crazy. That is a bit extreme, I think, no? The guy didn't give us water, and now his 50 generations later, they're forbidden to marry. Now today, by the way, the Gemara already says this. We don't know who's Ammon, we don't know who's Moav. The world, Sanheriv came and mumble-jumbled everybody. So we don't know who's who. So today, we accept converts from any nation because they're all mixed up. But in theory, if we knew someone was Ammon and Moav, not allowed. Why? Because he didn't give you bread and water. He didn't give you a tuna wrap. The guy should have given you a can of seltzer, and he didn't. And now, boom, ya'ash yourself. Unbelievable. What's even more unbelievable is the next words. Va'asher sachar alecha et Bil'am ben Be'or. And because Ammon and Moav hired Bil'am to come and curse you. Now that, by the way, makes sense. Okay, that's bad. You tried to kill us? You hired a sorcerer to wipe us all out? Now I understand why they have no room. So question number 1 is, how could it be that the pasuk that's listing for us 2 reasons, how could you put these 2 reasons in the same sentence? The first reason is so minimal. It's so small compared to the horrible act of wanting to kill us. That's question number 1. How do you also, if you're going to put them in the same sentence, at least the order should be like, they tried killing you. That should be number one. How is that that's reason number two. Now, a few psukim later, the pasuk says, Lo teta'ev adomi. What does that mean? Lo teta'ev adomi. Anyone? Lo teta'ev adomi means you cannot instigate, abhor an Edomite. Okay? Don't bother them. Okay? Now really, you should be able to bother them. And they came out to you with a sword, so we could have ill feelings. Torah says don't have ill feelings. Ki ahichahu, because bottom line, they're your brother. Velo teta'ev mitzri, same thing with an Egyptian. Egyptians killed us. Ki ger hayita be'arto, because you once lived in Egypt. And therefore you owe him a thank you. Therefore don't despise. And not only that, can I ask you guys a question? Can an Egyptian grandkid convert? I know you said Ammon and Moab cannot convert. What about an Egyptian? Says the Torah, Banim asher yiladu lahem dor shelishi. If they will have a child, the third generation, G3, Yavo lahem bikal Adonai, can enter the Jewish people. Unbelievable, my friends. This is wild. You're telling me that an Egyptian who threw our babies in the water, they tried killing us, annihilating from beginning to end. That guy, his grandkid, great-grandkid, whatever, is allowed. And then Ammon, Moab, he didn't give you a sushi roll when you were out in the desert hungry. He cannot ever convert. They're always forbidden. Take a look, my friends, at what the Midrash Rashi brings it down. Rabbi Shimon Omer, says Rabbi Shimon, Mitzrayim Tib'ut Israel Bayam, the Egyptians drowned us. Adomim, the next nation, Adom, they came out with a sword. Velo asram makatu vela al shosha dorot, they were only forbidden for 3 generations. After that, they could convert. Ammon ve'Moav, natlu etzal lahtit Israel, Ammon, Moab, who tried causing us to sin. They hired Bil'am. Asra makatuv isur olam. You know what the Midrash is adding here? It's not just that they hired Bil'am. What was the aftermath? What was the result of that encounter with Bil'am? When Bil'am wasn't able to curse us, Bil'am said, listen, you need to send your women to commit sins with the men. And if that happens, then you'll succeed. And sure enough, the women came out and they caused the Jewish men to sin. 24,000 died. And look at the Midrash says, Le'lamedcha, to teach you, she'amahti et ha'adam, that if you cause someone to sin, kashe lo min ha'orgo, you're worse than if you would have killed someone. She'ha'orgo, because if you kill someone, eno moti'ayla min ha'olam hazeh, you remove them from this world. But killing someone removes them from this world, but causing someone to sin removes someone from this world and from the next world. Is that unbelievable? Look how the Torah thinks. If you're a murderer, you kill someone, it's bad. But what do? You kill them and you remove them from this world. But if you cause someone to sin, if you're a bad influence, you remove them from the next world. That's a much greater crime. This is how the Torah looks at sin. It's a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing. If I show you a guy who's going around killing people, say, whoa, horrible. It's horrible, 100%. If I show you a guy who's a professor in university teaching people atheism, yes, whatever, just close your ears, just stay away, whatever, just filter. According to the Gemara, according to our rabbis, the professor is worse. He's mahti arabim, causing people to sin. There's nothing worse than that. And not only that, by the way, if I could, not me, Rav Yosef Salanter adds that it's not only if you cause someone to sin, but even if you could have prevented someone from sinning and you just didn't, you're also guilty. Do you hear this? Do you hear what's going on? Meaning, Of course, if you go to a guy and you say, here, I want you to start coming with me to do averot. Who cares about kosher? This is good food. Come and try my not kosher food. Who cares about praying with minyan? I have a good game of golf every morning. Come join me. You cause someone to sin. They're stopping to pray now. They're starting to break Shabbat. They're starting to be immoral. They're starting to steal. They're starting to curse. They're starting to eat not kosher. That's on your shoulders and it's very bad. But guess what? Forget if you cause the guy to sin, that's very bad. Even if you see someone who is sinning already, and you have it in your ability to get involved and to try to maybe stop them, and you don't, you're guilty of causing that person to sin. How do I know this? This is a big sentence I just said. Because I just said to you that if you have a friend or a neighbor or someone that you know that you can influence for the good, that you can speak to, and you don't get involved, and you're silent, you're guilty of causing that person to sin. You know where we know that from? We know that from the episode of the Eglah Rufa that we read last week. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'hakol niyeh b'ro. Last week, my friends, we read about the famous murder mystery. We find a dead body. We don't know who killed him. Innocent guy. Blood was shed. There's a whole ceremony that you have to bring a calf and decapitate it. And the elders come and they say, we didn't do anything. We didn't know, Hazi. We didn't see this guy leave. If we would have seen him, we would have given him food. The reason this guy who's dead, maybe he's dead, was because he was hungry. And then he tried to rob someone. And he tried to rob the wrong someone. You ever see like these videos of people that mess with the wrong guy? Right? And they cut someone off. And they act all macho. And then they realize the guy that they cut off is like a policeman. And he comes out of the car with a gun. And the guy's like all of a sudden this little coward. Oh, I'm so sorry, right? So maybe this guy messed with the wrong guy in the field. And that's why he got killed. And the elders need to say, we didn't send him off without food. We didn't do that. We didn't know he was leaving. Because guess what? If the elders would have known he was leaving, and they didn't give him food, and they just ignored him and his hunger, and then he went out into the fields, and he tried robbing somebody, and then he got killed, the elders would be guilty. Why? Because they could have prevented this. So you see that even preventing, even just not doing an avera, not giving a guy to do a sin. At the end of the day, the elders, they didn't give him a gun. They didn't say go rob people. But they could have prevented the situation. It's on your shoulders. This is the lesson that Rav Yosef, Be'er Yosef, Rav Yosef Tzvi Salant, learns from this episode. In his book, Darkei Musar, Rav Naiman learns something very, very powerful. And he asks the question that we ask, how can you even put these two sins in the same sentence? The fact that they didn't give us bread and water, and the fact that they tried killing us with Bilam, they seem to be two very, 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 very different crimes. How can you put these two crimes in the same sentence? One's like, white collar, and one is like murder. Like you should ship the guy off, right? And he explains that the Torah is over here teaching you, my friend, something very, very powerful. How does a guy get to a point that they want to wipe out a nation? How do you get there? How do you think of such a thing? How can Amor and Moab think of hiring someone to come and kill an entire innocent people? How do you do that? You would say maybe you were born to a bloody family of murderers and daggers and killing all day. Says Rav Naiman, you need to know, Aleinu lada'at, it's on you to know. Ki lo bebat echat yardu ledyuta atahtona. This wasn't created overnight. You don't wake up one day deciding to kill a nation. Reshito shel ma'aseh norazeh. You know how this started? Na'utz began the inception. B'shorashim kedumim. It started very small roots, very small seeds of just simply not giving bread and water. Torah is teaching you the way somebody becomes a mass murderer starts with very small flaw in character. You see, people don't go overnight and become evil. You don't go from 0 to killing. The Gemara says this. Yetzer Hara doesn't come and bring you to worship idols overnight. It's gradual. It's baby steps. Today he tells you, just, miss a mincha. Tomorrow, just, it's okay. You don't have to put on tefillin. And tomorrow, and then before you know it, the guy could be atheist. You don't go overnight from 0 to 100. People, they fall gradually. And this murderer, says Rav Naiman, you need to know that it didn't start, he wasn't born a murderer. When you see somebody like this, it started somewhere. And there was something actually very small once upon a time that actually was able to be prevented or assisted or helped. When it was small, you could take care of the problem. The problem is when you don't take care of the problem when it's small, I'll give you an example. A lot of times couples, they get divorced. And unfortunately, it's a sad thing, divorce, right? And you wake up, 10 years into your marriage, and you say, wow, how do we get here? We're married for 10 years, and we're just care less about each other, and there's no feelings. How did this happen? That there is, right? The truth is, it didn't happen overnight. It took 10 years to get there. It started with a very small problem. You forgot to say, have a good day. You get divorced because you didn't say, have a good day. You don't get divorced because you didn't say it. But if you don't say, have a good day, you forget to text your wife, how you doing? If you don't ask your husband, what's going on? How you feeling, honey? That's where it starts. That quickly graduates. It escalates. It becomes fighting, fist throwing items, yelling, cursing, go to burn, you should be a shit, right? But it starts very, very small. And smart people in life, they know that you can't cure a problem when it's all the way big over here. That's not going to help anyone. It's too late. It's too big of a problem. The problem is, really help should be sought right away. In the beginning, in the early stages of marital issues. Problem is, most people, they don't want to see a marriage counselor when it's a small problem, right? It's a small problem. We don't have to see anyone. It's fine. It's just a small problem. You're right. It's just a small problem. If you stop it and you keep it a small problem. But if you do nothing, if you don't get a book, if you don't speak to a therapist, if you don't get help, if you just ignore it, guess what? God forbid, the small problem, a small tumor becomes a very big tumor. It grows. And lucky is the person that can catch it in the early stage. A person that can stop it when it's still nip it in the bud, when it's still nothing, when it's still small, when it's still easy. Now the marriage counselor says all you need to do is just, make sure you send a text, you say hello, and then keep doing that. Or when you don't take care of the problem and it grows and grows and grows, and now you're fighting and you're yelling and you're moving out of the house and you're ignoring each other and you're taking separate vacations, and God forbid, who knows what else could be going on if there's infidelity. So these are much bigger problems, but they don't start with big problems. Big problems always begin small problems. And a person would be very wise to know. I had a student, he used to call me every little issue in his marriage. One day he said to me, Rabbi, you probably think I'm like the worst husband. I'm calling you for all these things. I said, actually, no. I called the kid Joey. I said, Joey, you're the best student I had. You're the smartest student I had. Because you're calling for every small problem. The people that are not calling, they're going to call one day when it's a very big problem. A kid's going out with a goya. And the parent calls me up and says, Rabbi, talk to my son. He's dating a non-Jew. Hello? Well, you think you just woke up one day dating a non-Jew? Why are you waking up when it's such a big problem now? This is a big issue. But this issue could have been prevented when it was very, very small. When he was just, going out after school, hanging out with a kid from the corner. Nothing wrong with that, but that's something to pay attention to. Did you pay attention? When he was going out to eat with his friends who were not Jewish at a non-kosher restaurant. Yeah, but we eat non-kosher. That's right, but guess what? All these laws that the rabbis put in place of not eating non-kosher, they're there for reasons. They're there because they know that you have today a little piece of bread with the kid. Tomorrow he brings you over. The next day you marry his sister. But that's realistic. Those are things that happen. But if we only wake up when it's a big issue, Rabbi, here, my son's marrying a Goya, talk to him. They expect me to talk to the guy and in a half hour undo what they messed up with the kid for 20 years. What world are we living in? What are you thinking? How do you just wake up now? Where were you? Where were you when it was a small problem that we could have taken care of? It was a relatively minor issue. But we're sleeping. We say it's only a small problem, Rabbi. No big deal. Okay? And guess what? It sits and it grows and it grows and it grows. And then we expect, oh, Rabbi, please, he's getting engaged to a Goya. They come crying. You can't wake up now. You can't wake up now. And this is true not only with intermarriage. It's true with many, many averot, with many addictions, issues. People that are addicts in drugs, no one starts with the hard drugs. No one's going to meth. Oh, hey, give me meth. You know what I mean? It's not usually where you start. It starts with a little hit, elig, a little Jewel, a little Miley. It graduates. Miley doesn't do it for you. You need now the G-Pen. You need the actual goods. You need, and then it grows. And a person that doesn't realize, you know what? If I don't stop here, I'm going to end up there. That is where the problem exists, my friends. Gambling, any addict, any addiction. No one begins and sits at a blackjack table. I'm going to put my house on the line. 3 million. No one begins betting 3 million. You begin betting $2, $100. But if that's not in the beginning stages, if it's not being observed, if it's not being monitored, then that could very easily get carried away. It's a small problem, but small problems don't remain small. They always become big problems. The Torah tells us that if a person is in the temple and he sees a sotah, he sees a lady who is suspicious of committing adultery. She has to drink a special water, and we have to see, is she innocent, is she guilty? Torah says, Kol haro'eh, whoever, anyone that's there that day, that sees a lady drinking this water. And what does that include? Even the tzaddik gamur, even Acham Ovadia Yosef, even the biggest rabbi, Imera lahem, if you one day saw this lady in the temple drinking this water and you saw what alcohol can do, you have to ask yourself, maybe I should stop drinking alcohol. That's an unbelievable statement. You're talking about one of the biggest rabbis in the world. He saw a sotah, he saw a lady. What's she have to do with me? I can have a little wine. But the Torah says, be very careful though. Just think and think and think and think it through and make sure, because no, this lady didn't wake up one day cheating on her husband. It didn't start there. It started with a little wine. It started with becoming a little bit loose. It started with going to a little destination, a little party, a little club, a little this, then a drink, became another drink, and then became fooling around, and then became texting, and then it became sexting, and then it became flirting, and it became all these things. But where did it start? She woke up one day saying, I'm gonna cheat. She didn't wake up there. She woke up with a little drink. So really the chacham, the smart person, knows I have to take care of the problem when it's a small little drink. You don't take care of it when it's already a very, very, very big problem. They bring many stories. They bring a story of the year of the Saba Mikelim. They told the rabbi that there was a drunkard that was lying on the ground, and the kids walking to school on the next day, they saw the drunkard from the night before, and they started throwing rocks at him. They started belittling this drunkard. The drunkard, when he woke up, he said to the kids, what school you go to? They told him, he said, what are you learning? And all of a sudden, this drunkard started teaching them what they were learning in school. They realized this drunkard, is a scholar. He knows, he has a lot of wisdom in Torah and Gemara. Well, the Saba Mikilim said, how can it be? This big rabbi all of a sudden becomes just a drunkard, a nobody, a loser on the street. And they said, well, unfortunately, it was just one day after work, he went to the bar, and then that drink led to going weekly to the bar, and then he went daily to the bar until he drank his life away. And the Saba Mikilim, when he heard this story, he said, if wine can bring a rabbi to this, I am no longer having wine. I'm done with wine. That's it. If a rabbi could stop having, if a rabbi could, like this caliber, could become, then it could happen to me. And he stopped before the wine. He stopped when it was a small problem. The tzaddikim, the Gemara says, when at the end of time, Hashem's going to bring the angel of death, the evil inclination, and he's going to slaughter it. And the tzaddikim, the reshaim, everyone, when they see it, they're all going to cry, but for different reasons. The reshaim, they're going to cry, oh my gosh, I messed up, the opportunity of a lifetime, I'm such a dummy. The tzaddikim, they're going to cry tears of joy. When you win, you see like in the US Open now, when a player wins, they start crying. My son said, Dad, why are they crying? They're crying tears of joy. And that's sad, right? The tzaddikim are going to cry tears of joy. The reshaim are going to cry tears of sadness. And the Gemara explains, the reshaim are going to cry tears of joy. The reshaim are going to cry tears of sadness. And they're going to say, I can't believe it. We couldn't even defeat this small. They're going to see the Yetzer Hara like a small little hair. You ever saw hair? Very small. They're going to say, oh my gosh, we couldn't even win against this small little guy. And the tzaddikim, they're going to see the Yetzer Hara as this huge mountain. And they're going to be crying tears of joy. Holy cow, how did we defeat this big mountain? How do we overcome it? And our rabbis ask, I don't understand, is the Yetzer Hara a mountain or is it a little piece of hair? And our rabbis tell us that it depends who you are. If you're a tzaddik, you understand the Yetzer Hara is a huge mountain. And although today he's coming only for this small little hair avera, come on, just get a drink. Come on, just send a text. Just flirt. Just say one line. Just do this. Just a little thing, no big deal. That one day is going to become a huge problem. That's going to become a mountain. That could ruin your marriage. That could ruin your relationship with your kids. That could ruin your relationship in your workspace. It could destroy your working ethic. It could destroy your responsibilities. You lose your job. You lose everything. So a chacham knows it's a small problem, but it's going to become one day a very, very big, very, very big problem. The reshaim, they say, okay, it's just a small problem, big deal. I can do it. I didn't kill anyone. I didn't, commit idolatry. And then what happens is that you're right, but it escalates and it becomes that one day. And therefore the Torah says, Ammon and Moab, they can't convert. They can't. They're not allowed to enter. And you know what's the reason? The real reason is because they killed us. They hired Bilam. But how do you get to that? Who wakes up one day and says, I want to kill a whole nation? Torah says, oh, it didn't start there. It started with, they didn't want to give you a little bread and water. A little bit bad derech eretz. Just a little bit bad hospitality. Bad hospitality could grow and grow and grow if it's not being monitored. If we're not on top of it, we have to make sure in the beginning, in the infancy stages. I've told you before, I'll tell you again. When I was a teacher in Yeshiva Flatbush, my Rabbi Eliach taught me how to teach. Allah Shalom, he passed away last year. Rav David Eliach, great man. And every week I would sit with him in the library, we would sit down, go through lesson planning, and he would teach me the art of teaching. He told me a story one time. Because I asked him, I saw a kid cheating, how do you deal with things like this? So he told me a story. He said, there was a because what happened was I caught a kid cheating and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to not do anything, but I also knew if I call him out, the kid's not going to like me, he's going to hate me. I'll tell you, beautiful, listen to this story. So Rabbi Ariel told me the following story. He said when he was a teacher 50 years ago, however many years ago, he as well caught this kid cheating nonstop. And this kid was valedictorian, top of the class, hundreds, right? I guess you know why, right? But he was cheating all the time, this kid. And one day, Rabbi Ariel took the kid's paper. He brought him to the principal. He says, I caught the kid cheating a few times, and we have to penalize him. We gotta make him retake the course. The principal at the time, I don't know who it was, but the principal seems to be the father of this boy was very influential, gave a lot of money on the board. So the principal said, listen, just let it go. We can't really do anything. Just make him do a retake, whatever, something insignificant. Okay, Rabbi Eliach, what's he going to do? He's not going to argue with the principal. He's just a teacher. He says, anyways, the kid, he passed through, 4 years of high school, flying colors, aced every test, hundreds, valedictorian. He got accepted to Ivy League, and he became a very big judge one day. He says, many, many, many years later, I'm sitting in the library reading the New York Times, and I see on the front cover a judge of one of the Supreme Courts or whatever system it was in handcuffs. And I look at the name and I say, I can't believe it. It was this student of mine that I taught 20, 30 years ago. And he's on the front cover of the New York Times with his hands cuffed, going to jail for accepting bribes. And Rav Eliach said, I kicked myself and I blamed myself. He said, Ze ashmati. He said it was our fault. Because when we saw this as a small problem, just on a little test, we didn't do anything about it. And if we would have maybe taught him a lesson that you don't cheat, that being dishonest is not okay, if we would have taught him when he was still a young boy, when it was still just an issue that was easy to maybe address, and he wouldn't need to be on the front cover for going to jail for accepting bribes. So this is, I think, my friends, very, very powerful. As we start going into the new year, and we start thinking of our resolutions, we start asking ourselves, what are the things that I should stop doing? And we think of the big problems in our lives. I'm doing this big problem, I'm doing that big, I gotta stop. But really, we need to ask ourselves, my friends, is not, what am I doing up here? We have to ask ourselves, what's the small sin that I'm doing? What's the small crime that's leading to this big crime? Yes, it's true, I'm committing these averot, but where did that begin? Maybe it's a certain friend that I have that's pulling me there. So really the problem's not there, the problem is the friend. So now our resolution is very different, right? The problem is not that I talk Lashon Hara. Where am I speaking Lashon Hara? It's always at lunch with these girls over here at that event. So now I'm thinking already differently. Now I'm trying to nip it in the bud. Trying to find the root problem, and already we'll find that it's much easier when you could find the source, when you could go back to the origins. Hashem should help every single one of us be able to identify the source, the roots of our problems, of our issues, to be able to catch them for ourselves, for our children in their early stages, and then we will be able to take care of each and every single one at a time as they come along. Okay, we'll stop over here, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. God willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.